Martell Holt, the man who once stood in front of cameras with a confident smile, dressed in tailored suits, giving off the image of a man in control. He wanted the world to believe he was misunderstood, a father fighting for his family, a victim of unfair judgment. But behind that perfect smile was a storm that has now come crashing down. Because this story isn't about success or fame. It's about what happens when the truth refuses to stay buried, when the people closest to you, even your own children, begin revealing what's really been happening behind closed doors. Martell built his reputation on being charming and confident. For years, he controlled the narrative. Every time the public questioned his choices, he had a speech ready. Every time the headlines painted him as the bad guy, he flipped the story, making himself the hero. But there's only so long you can play a character before reality steps in. And now the truth has come straight from the most unexpected voices, his kids. For so long, Martell wanted to be seen as the loving father, the man who was fighting the system for the sake of his children. But when the court ordered him to do certain things, things that were meant to prove he was capable of being a stable parent, he didn't follow through. Therapy sessions, parental evaluations, structured routines, simple steps that could have shown the judge he was serious about being there for his children. But he ignored them, not once or twice, but for over 2 years. That wasn't forgetfulness, that was pride. And that pride has now cost him almost everything. People who used to defend him are now asking hard questions. Because when a man claims to love his kids but refuses to do the work required to keep them safe and happy, that's not love, that's control. And control has always been Martell's real obsession. It's been said many times that Martell's downfall didn't start with the divorce or the cheating. It started when he refused to accept that he wasn't in charge anymore. When he realized Melody was building a life that didn't include him, he didn't focus on healing or growth. He focused on revenge. Every post, every comment, every shady interview, it all came from the same place, the need to stay in control. But that control started slipping when people began noticing how differently he treated his children. With Ariane Curry's son, he was the picture of joy, smiles, laughter, posts full of positivity. But when it came to the kids he shared with Melody, suddenly everything was private. He claimed he didn't want to show them for their protection, but fans saw through it. It wasn't about privacy, it was about punishment. That double standard didn't go unnoticed. Fans started comparing his behavior, and soon even insiders close to the family began whispering that things weren't as picture-perfect as Martell tried to make them seem. The kids who had once been shielded from public drama were now indirectly caught in it, and slowly they began expressing themselves in small ways that said more than words ever could. Kids are smarter than most adults give them credit for. They feel energy, they sense tension, and they remember who shows up for them. They know who tucks them in, who wipes their tears, who listens when the world feels heavy. Over time, Martell's children began to understand that love isn't just about words or expensive gifts. It's about consistency. And when that consistency started coming only from their mother, their loyalty shifted. The saddest part is that Martell had every chance to change. Judges gave him opportunities. Melody didn't block him from being a father. The system was actually designed to help him rebuild, but he couldn't let go of his ego. He kept thinking charm could fix everything. But judges don't care about charm. They care about behavior, responsibility, and results. Then came the part that changed everything, the conviction. This wasn't a rumor or internet gossip. It was a legal fact. A domestic violence charge, a guilty plea, and a second guilty plea after his failed attempt to appeal. It was like watching a man fall in slow motion, except he was the one pushing himself off the ledge. That conviction shattered any remaining illusion that Martell was being unfairly treated. The court system doesn't take domestic violence lightly, especially when children are involved. Suddenly, this wasn't about a bitter custody battle or two exes who couldn't move on. This was about safety, accountability, and truth. As the October custody trial approaches, everyone can feel the tension building. Martell walks into the courtroom not as a hero or a victim, but a man with a record, a man who ignored court orders, a man who let his pride destroy his family. The irony is painful. The very thing he claimed to be fighting for, his kids, may now become the thing he loses. Martell Holt once stood as the man who had it all. The success, the family, the fame, and the image of a man who could do no wrong. He was polished, confident, and always camera-ready. When he walked into a room, people noticed. He had that energy of someone who believed he was unstoppable. But the same confidence that built his empire has now become the very thing that's tearing it apart. The man who once smiled proudly beside Shari as they built homes and a family together is now standing in court, defeated, emotional, and alone. Because the final decision that came from the judge didn't just end a chapter of his life, it changed the entire story. For years, fans watched Martell and Melody as one of reality TV's power couples. Together, they built more than houses. They built a dream. Love and Marriage Huntsville started as a story about ambition and community, but soon it became the public unraveling of a marriage that no one expected to fall apart. The cracks first showed when the truth about Martell's infidelity came to light. What started as whispers and rumors turned into headlines, then into scenes that millions watched unfold on television. Melody's heartbreak was raw and public. Martell's pride didn't let him stop the destruction, even when he had the chance. Instead of owning his mistakes, he tried to control the story, to look like the misunderstood man who just wanted his family back. But behind the scenes, things were darker than what the cameras showed. The downfall didn't happen overnight. It came in layers: legal battles, arguments, public fights, and emotional breakdowns. The man who once spoke about legacy and leadership began to lose control of everything that once made him strong. And now, the court has spoken. The final decision shocked everyone, but no one more than Martell himself. This wasn't just about losing a legal case. It was about losing the last piece of the life he once had. The judge's decision confirmed what many had feared for years. Martell Holt's behavior had gone too far, and the consequences were now impossible to escape. In August 2025, Madison County Circuit Court confirmed that Martell Holt had been convicted twice of domestic violence and harassment. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't gossip. It was written in black and white court records. For years, Martell tried to defend himself online, posting quotes about being misunderstood and claiming that the media twisted the truth. But this time, there was no one else to blame. The court had documents, evidence, and a history of behavior that couldn't be ignored. What made it worse was that Martell didn't even try to fight it anymore. He pleaded guilty, again. His first conviction came in May 2024, but instead of learning from it, he appealed, hoping for a different result. A year later, the outcome was the same. Guilty again. No more excuses, no more denial, just a reality that hit him harder than anything he had faced before. The sentence didn't sound huge on paper: probation, fines, a suspended 30-day jail sentence, and a no-contact order with Melody. But the emotional weight of that ruling was enormous. This wasn't just another court date. It came right before the biggest trial of all, the custody case that would determine whether Martell would get to see his kids without supervision. In Alabama, when a parent has a domestic violence conviction, it's not just a strike against them. It's almost impossible to recover from. The court looks at one thing above all else: the safety and emotional well-being of the children. And when that's at risk, judges don't take chances. Melody knows this. She's been patient, quiet, and strategic. For years, she's carried herself with grace while raising 4 kids, building businesses, and trying to protect her peace. She's been dragged online, attacked in interviews, and forced to defend her motherhood against rumors. But every time Martell tried to shake her, she stood firm. She learned how to let him self-destruct while she focused on her growth.
the final court decision wasn't just a win for Melody, it was proof that her silence had power. While Martell was busy trying to control the narrative, the court was quietly watching, collecting evidence, and keeping score. By the time October 15th custody hearing rolled around, Martell's chances had already crumbled. His record spoke louder than any statement he could make. The judge saw a man who had not only disrespected his ex-wife, but also the court's orders.